Dude, it's crazy how the algorithm just like steers people.
It does, and it does a good job of it too. And it's
way too good of a job.
It's unfortunate. Like, I remember seeing, like, if you pause for like just a second too long, or like let's say you're like scrolling and you yawn, it'll like see that you're on something for a millisecond longer than you normally thought you would be. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, here you go. Here's 400 things about fishing. And you're like, I don't care about fishing. It's like, no, there was that one time you watched a reel and this guy was cooking fish. And so we just figured you want to see 4,000 videos about a guy on a bass boat now. Like, sometimes the algorithm just goes nuts and it's like, nah, that's not.
Goes way too hard.
That's not where it's at.
I almost wonder if we're ever going to hit a point with all this technology and the social media where like they're kind of like forced to dial it back. You know, where, I mean, I kind of doubt it, but I wonder if there's a subset of people that's just going to be like, okay, like I can tell what you're doing. You're pushing way too much. Like I want to see the other side of the aisle, whether that's politically or media or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah. So, and that's like the worst part is like, if you ever do see the other side of the aisle, whatever other side of the aisle it might be, you end up with this thing where it's like, they show you something that's just going to upset you and reinforce what you believe about your side of the aisle in the first place.
Yeah, that's very true.
So it's just kind of like, if you believe that, politician A is one thing and politician B is, A is the good guy and B is the bad guy, they're going to show you things about A and how awesome they are. And then they're going to show you things about B. And it's like, this guy fell on his face when he did something, or he picked his nose. Look at that. And they're going to show you like the dumbest things ever. And you're going to be like, what a moron. And that's just how America works now. And it's kind of bummer.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a way that's how people are too. I almost wonder if like, we talk about like how it wasn't that way, but I almost wonder if those people 50, 100 years ago were given what we're given, if they would have just done the same thing.
I 100% believe that. I mean, I remember reading about it. It's probably true. I don't know. It's the internet. I saw it on the internet, so whatever. I didn't go like look it up on like the Times website or anything.
You didn't go to the library.
Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Looking up microfiche on this. No, but it was they gave like phones to this like tribe of like mostly cultured people. They like don't interact with other people. They weren't like uninhabited. Nobody had ever like. It's not like they were just leaving them alone and studying them. They like have talked to humans and stuff and know like modern people, but they were kind of like, we're in the hills, don't bother us.
Sure.
But they gave them like iPhones and stuff. And in like a matter of weeks, like all the guys were now like sedentary and just watching porn videos all the time.
I was going to say.
And it's just like, man, these pitfalls, like you think like, a lot of us like struggle with a lot of this stuff in private, especially, like,
sure.
And we're just like, oh man, I'm a horrible person. Then it's just like, everyone's horrible. We're all just programmed this way. And the stupid thing is the whole world is figure out like, here's the low hanging fruit. And this is how we can like just show this to somebody and just ruin their day. And I don't know. I mean, think about like everything like drinking and gambling and
sure.
Just like all of the quote unquote vices. It's like, they're all readily available. Like you drive past a gas station, it just says like liquor, lottery tickets. And you're just like, oh, sweet. Just pull in here after work, and everyone does it.
I would actually argue though, it's less readily available. Cause I think with something like gambling or like drinking, there's still a step where you like have to, like if you're driving past, you have to stop the car, you have to get in, you have to pay money. Whereas with something like porn, it literally, like there are times you'll just be on your feet and it'll just pop up. And it's like, it's almost like the equivalent, like if like you're an alcoholic and somebody takes a beer and opens it and just pours it down your throat while you're walking down the street.
Yeah, it's just like, they're going to go drink it next to you, but they're going to like pour it in front of you and just be like, this is really good. And you're just like, what? I think about that with like the porn thing. It's like the pseudo porn on the internet just like upsets me so much. Like I'm as a guy programmed to like love it, but there's so many things where you're just like scrolling through and like, oh, you're on Facebook or whatever, and here's like the 5 reels that you might want to watch or whatever in that little advertising line. And it's like 3 of them are like women in bikinis, and you're like, it's like I'm clicking the football one every time just because I just like, it's like, get this crap off my feed. I'm tired of it. Like, yeah, I get it. Boobs exist. Like maybe it's because I'm finally like getting older and I'm not like, like, wired like a teenager anymore or a 20-year-old, but like I'm just at the point where it's like, I get it. Like, okay, fine. Yeah, there's a new Twisted Tea out. I get it. Okay, cool, fine, whatever. Not a sponsor. Don't buy it. No, buy it. Whatever. Keep it twisted.
That's funny.
But yeah, so like that kind of stuff. There's points where I'm just like, I find myself falling into it because I work at a marketing agency now. So I see all this stuff and I know how it works. But like there's times where I fall into it and it's just like, what am I doing? And it's, it could be something as simple as like, I don't watch the NFL, but I watch all these highlights, you know. I don't watch pro wrestling, but I watch all these highlights. And now that's what's like on my feed all the time. It's like a lot of that stuff. And it's like, this isn't even something I readily actually like watch, but for some reason I'm watching some guy tackle another guy and I'm just like, neat. And I'm like wasting time in my car before I go inside, you know, go to work or something, or I'm on break and I'm just like, yep, this is productive, you know. Meanwhile, I have 400 unread emails. And
yeah, I'm curious to see if like this will be something that will be a pitfall, like for future generations, or if like similarly to like things in the past, like the next generation or the 2 generations down, they'll just be like, nah, we're done with all this. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if like this is like the pinnacle of technology or media where like we're quote unquote doomed, or if like there will be like, you know, another generation down the road, they'll be like, you know, I'm not going to spend all my time on TikTok. I'm not going to spend all my time on Instagram. Like we're going to curate our own website or app that's going to be different. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious on how that's actually going to play out.
I bet you're onto something, because I mean, it makes me think about some of the most prevalent things. I would think of like, you know, cigarette smoking. It used to be like everyone smoked. They like gave babies cigarettes when they were born and stuff. You know, like it was just like there was commercials like in your TV shows where they're just like, I smoke Chesterton Field Winston whatever cigarettes and they make me smell great. And you know, and it was just like some guy with like a gal in a ball gown next to him. You know, it's just like, oh, what the heck? Or it's like a rugged dude, and it's now you don't see that anymore. And now it's like there's no longer like 50% of the population smoking cigarettes, which is kind of nice, you know? And it's just like, which is even weirder because like as a cigarette smoker at the time, I was just like, I don't know if I want to have it. So they like ban smoking cigarettes inside. Now it's like the greatest thing ever. So it's stuff that you don't even think were like, it's just like, if everybody wants this, maybe this is, I need to take a look at myself a little bit, you know, and kind of reassess how all this is going. And there's some things that, you know, because it was like, this is the readily available information, we realize this is bad for you. And most of the culture was just kind of like, yes, we agree, and away it went. Maybe, you know, eventually some of this advertising in a sense will go that way, or some of this, the way the algorithm works to basically just like poison us to waste time, you know, as they data mine, and which is like absolutely insane to me. I started like diving into those algorithms lately, as like, what is data mining? How does it happen? And how do like companies get your money? And what are these companies? And like, it's pretty weird. Like, that's all I got to say. There's a lot of weird stuff going on out there. And that's the other thing that kind of just weirds me out about the internet. There's just nothing sacred out there, man.
Oh no, not at all. But like, you almost can't even blame them because like we voluntarily gave them that information.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
in a sense, yeah. There's some where it's just like I don't agree with. So like,
sure.
I've found that like the workaround a lot of companies have is that like in their like terms of contracts, it's like, we won't sell your information, but they do allow one thing, and that's like data monitoring. So they're not like selling it, but this company that is data monitoring has the rights to collect anything they monitor. So they'll sell like slices of their app space to like have somebody put something in there to run in the background to collect all your data, so they know how many, you know, super nacho burritos from Taco Bell thingies you've bought recently, and now they know to like sell you stuff like based on this, or like to push it to another company that's going to put it in your feed to try to whatever XYZ.
I see.
So they're not selling your data, they're selling a slice of the app and then allowing them to monitor, and then
that's the loophole. Okay.
And there's like companies that do this, and there's like 6 or 7 like super big ones, but
Jeez.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and that's something I hope that people more and more get educated on too. Like I think there is kind of like a naivety to really any platform. You just kind of like, oh, I'm just Googling this or doing that. Like
I'm gonna go incognito, nobody will find me here. It's like, I don't know about that.
That's all bullshit. They're still collecting your data. They got the IP, you know. Even if you have like, I think even that VPN stuff, like I don't know how foolproof that is. I I used to like pirate movies and shit, and one time I was like pirating stuff and I had VPN, and like in the middle of downloading my VPN just shut down for like a minute, and I was like, oh fuck. And then like I got like 3 flags. Like my internet provider was like emailing me like, dude, you like, we're gonna turn you over if you don't fucking stop this shit.
Yeah, that's super wild. Like the first time I ever heard of anyone getting that notification, because like I never got one, because it was when I was doing it was the Wild West, so
sure,
everyone was doing it. But like the first time I ever heard of someone getting one of those from an internet provider was like, what, for real? And it's like, It's like, well, technically, like they're the ones that are implicit by allowing you to do this, so they kind of have to do it, Otherwise, if their oversight board, which is probably the FCC or something,
probably
they're probably not going to be as nice.
They're gonna get some lawsuit,
possibly
get sued for however many billions of dollars.
Yeah. You need to give Napster money, which I think I saw Napster's getting sued again by by Sony because they didn't pay them like royalty fees or something that they're owed. It's something like that. I don't know. Look that up. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually am kind of curious. Do you mind looking up when Napster got sued?
Yeah, Napster.
The last time.
Yeah, Napster getting sued. I don't know, but like I swear I saw that recently, and it's not like an astronomical amount of money, but it's still like millions if I remember correctly, like measurable millions.
They should just leave it.
Sony sues Napster.
Oh wow, yeah,
$9.2 million.
This is like 12 days ago.
Yeah, August 5th. That's crazy.
Yeah, click that first one. Hiring. God.
See, yeah.
Jesus
Has
Christ.
internet ad space gotten bad? Can you tell me? Like, we were just talking about this.
Sony Music Entertainment has sued Napster, alleging that the streaming service owes more than $9.2 million in unpaid royalties and licensing fees, while seeking damages of as much as $37.5 million for copyright infringement. Yeah, I don't know. Just leave it alone, man. Like, like in the day and age of like Spotify and all that, like.
It's also like, where's this money going? Like, I didn't get any of that money. I've got like, I'm involved in multiple projects that have multiple bands, have multiple recordings online, and I remember once like Three Finger Betty. It's like here's what you guys get, and it was just like 37 cents, and it's just like neat. Like, I'm glad we got something, but it's it's not like we got millions of views or whatever, but it's still kind of just like.
Yeah,
interesting how this gets sliced up.
I agree. Not to dive into politics or anything like that, but I always find it really funny how like when somebody's like, "Oh, I'm going to sue this person." I really think people think of it as like you're diving into their bank account and like taking money and then giving it to yourself. But that's not really it. It's like this middleman. So like it's basically just like, "Oh, I'm going to sue this person for say $20,000 or whatever." Take it to court, you win for however much money. The court then just takes taxpayer dollars and gives it to you, but then they still have to rely on that person to actually pay up.
Yes.
To like pay the court. Yeah. And a lot of times they don't. So then it just creates like this bubble, you know what I mean? But not to dive too into that, but I just think it's funny how people just like when they think of suing, they're like, it's like if you stole $5 from me and I came up to you and beat you up and then took the $5 out of your pocket. Like, that's not how it works.
That is not how it works. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, seeing the OJ documentary, he lost in civil court, which is also like weird. And I don't think he paid out anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like it's up to like, like I don't know if that's like an agreement they have because it's millions of dollars where it's like we have to get this from this person to sue them or whatever. Like I know people that have had like things stolen or like whatever, and they have to get like reparations for like the damages or something like that. And then it's just like, well, now it's up to us to get it from this person, but unless I want to get a collection agency involved who's going to take a slice of it, it begins to be this thing where like even if you sue someone and win, it's like, oh, now I got to pay my lawyer, now I got to pay this person, now I got to pay, and then it's just by the time you pay it all down, it's like, was it worth it to even do all this stuff to waste your time to get whatever it ends up being that you get? Maybe, but I don't know. I also view like, this is going to sound, I don't know, whatever, but I view this thing where like there's a lot of people that like to incite drama in their lives, and it's the whole like
they feel entitled.
Yeah, it's almost like I got to find somebody to tattle on, like and so they just go to the higher board, which is usually like a government or like a city entity or like the cops or like something like that, and they're just like, I'm going to go to here and tell on these people because they whatever haven't mowed their lawn this week or so, it's like it always seems to be like really menial things for a lot of these things, I
100% agree
with like no accountability for these people, like just having common sense judgment, like the whole like I spilled McDonald's coffee on myself and it was too hot, and it's like I get there's probably like some liability on McDonald's part, but at the same time, like don't dump coffee on yourself. It's where's the onus? That's a bad example, but there's like a lot of them.
No, but like
ticky tacky.
Should McDonald's have to pay them like hundreds of thousands of dollars? No, probably not.
I don't know. Like I was the one who had coffee spilled probably in my crotch. If it was in my crotch, I'd probably be like,
I could see the argument for like maybe your hospital bills. Like if it was extreme and it was like I have to go to the hospital and I have to pay the hospital to fix this, I could see an argument for that.
Okay, so now this is what my favorite part about talking with somebody is we're like coming to this like, okay, here's my extreme thought on this, here's your extreme, then like in the middle we've kind of come down to this thing where it's like yeah. Okay, this is actually probably what should happen. Like I think the precedent has just been set too high.
Yes,
the bar is too high where it's just like I need to sue you for $1 bazillion because you fed my son candy and I'm trying to make it so he doesn't have sugar, or just there's like just something weird where they're just like pick out like a thing in their head where like this is something that I deserve millions of dollars for, and it's not sometimes not necessarily worth the money they're going to get. So, but everyone thinks they're going to just sue for millions of dollars, and it becomes this sue happy thing, And I don't necessarily agree too much with that. Like, I think I saw like LeBron James was going to try and sue like open source AI technology.
For the pregnant
for like looking pregnant in like videos and pictures, and it's like, what are you suing the internet now? Like, I get it. Like,
who are you even putting on that plaintiff? Like, what? Like,
but he what was the whole like suing Taco Bell was suing people over Taco Tuesdays or something, and LeBron James got involved in that and got Taco Tuesdays like freed or whatever. I don't know. Good job. Like that's the stuff that like that's another thing is like there's pressing things happening in the world, and I know all the stuff you can tell me about like Napster getting sued in 2025 and LeBron James saving Taco Tuesday. But we're like, meanwhile, we're having a podcast where people are going to watch, and we're just basically like, I don't want to get politics involved or talk about important things, but this Taco Tuesday thing's really freaking important, And the worst part is this is what's going to get hits and views. This is what people are just going to be like, hot take, nacho supreme burritos, the shit, or like whatever, they're just going to, this is the one, this is the real. Make sure you mark this.
Hey, give me ideas over here, man. I like it. Well, anyways, we're already like 20 minutes into the episode, but if you don't know, Peter Stockdale from the Audible Farm podcast, you were telling me one of the last times we talked, you were involved, I don't know if this is still the case, but at one point you were involved in 8 different podcasts.
Yes, that is actually a thing. So I work for a marketing company in Fort Dodge, and basically I run all the podcast stuff there, and I've utilized podcast as like a marketing tool there, so like basically you can have a company come in or a company like have a sponsored podcast that will kind of discuss topics that would be relevant to their company, and then you could use that for like a good example would be like a financial company. So like let's say they do like financial planning, they can come in and discuss different topics about financial planning. They don't have to be like, here's our plan, you have to do this, but they can be like, this is why you should probably save for retirement, and this is like, probably the pace you should do it, and this is like a good example of things you could do, or like if you have a financial advisor already, talk to them about this, or like things like that, so you can use these like little clips out of their podcast to actually use them for like advertising, and put them out different places, because right now vertical videos are like the reels or the shorts or whatever, those are the things that everyone's watching.
Yes.
We all spend too much time on that TikTok, whatever it is, I don't care what platform, that's what everyone's watching. So that's what we watch, and that's what you make, and that's what everybody likes to see, and then eventually you get followers and people interacting and then contacting these people, and then it works. It's just like a marketing strategy. So utilizing that as like the structure for other people has actually kind of like taught me different things, like how to be professional and things like that. But I've had the ability to do this for there's 6 that I run there, and then I have my podcast, and then I run another one that's on the side for a nonprofit. So I do that one as well for the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association, FDT. Check that one out. I also co-host that one. The other ones I just do like production work or editing work. I'm the person behind the scenes doing all those kind of things.
Okay,
so that's kind of what I do on a lot of those, or like I give them ideas or like remind them to do things, because like that's usually just like what a producer does or something like that, or director, executive director. Like there's all these terms that get bantied about. I'm a producer. I'm a whatever. But I always just say I do background work. I'm doing the editing and I'm doing stuff, but I'm like not doing all the production. Sometimes they come in, they're like, here's our guest. This is who we're interviewing. This is the things we're going to discuss. It's like, well, you just did all the production work. I just have to twist knobs and do editing now, and remind you to tell people to subscribe and to make sure you introduce to everybody, or like to adjust microphones or lights or things like that mid podcast if we need to, whatever it happens to be. So, it's taught me a lot. Like I've learned a lot of things. Between all of those podcasts, I've amassed like literally almost 1 million YouTube views in the last year. But like
Nice.
some of those podcasts are like 6 episodes deep. So like,
Wow.
so
Damn.
like, yeah, I've done pretty well, like doing a lot of different things for those podcasts, but it's a lot of work. That's something else I found out. Like, let me ask you this: you're not doing all of the work, but you're doing most of the work. I mean, you're not sitting behind the desk while you're interviewing me right now, so you have to have somebody else who's doing some of the work. But it's a lot of work. How much time do you spend just on an episode? Either contacting the person, pseudo planning it out, recording the thing, which is long, but then you have to go through and edit the thing, which sometimes you have to rewatch the whole thing. So like, how much time do you think you spend on an episode?
Well, I will say I do kind of cheat. I don't actually watch the whole episode. I probably should.
I do too. Usually I just have like a notepad and it's just like, remember to take this out. And then the rest of it, I'm just kind of like, whatever.
You know, I used to have like an AI bot that would, I would have different angles and it would just like custom edit it basically. I miss that shit, but it was expensive. Per episode, probably like 4 hours at least.
That's a good example. Yeah, when I do mine, I budget for 5, and that's usually what I spend. Some of them are a little bit longer, some of them are a little bit shorter, but the average is about 5. You know, and that's how much time I spend on mine. But again, mine's slightly different because I'm doing it for another company. So it's like, well, now I have to track down all these things, make sure the links are correct, and make sure everything looks professional, and make custom graphics for everything, and then give them social media stuff they can post, and then schedule everything out, and then make the reels, and then schedule all that stuff out.
Yeah.
So I have to go through all the steps. You know, it just takes time, you know?
Oh yeah, like I'm literally at my regular job doing my other job. Like I'm like stopping by. I'm like, I gotta post this reel really quick. Like I know I'm supposed to be cleaning right now, but I'm just gonna dip off for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, same deal. Like I was doing that for a short period of time at my job. If I needed something, like I usually just brought my laptop with, and it's like, if I need to spend 10 minutes on this, I will just make a post real quick, and then it's back to doing other stuff. So I would do that stuff because, and this is the crazy thing, because I do this for a job and that's what I get paid to do, I spend more time doing that than I do on my personal podcast, which yields me less money. So because it yields me less money and I'm not directly like charging anyone, I don't have any direct advertising, I'm not drawing any direct revenue from any streams, the Patreon is minimal. So it's one of those things where it's like, this is the thing that takes the back seat. So sometimes I forget to post on Thursday when the episode comes out, which actually is the case this week. I still haven't made a post about it. It's a replay episode, so it's not that big a deal. But still, it's one of those things where it's like, my own podcast is kind of taking a hit when it comes to like consistency compared to the other ones, which, because I'm getting paid to do them, I am like, that's priority numero uno. You know, even opening the communication to these people where it's just like, you have an episode Friday and it's Tuesday and we don't have anything recorded. What's on your mind? You know, like here's 10 possible topics you could talk about. Here's some people you could like talk to, whatever it happens to be. So you have to like still put that producer hat on sometimes, where like even in mine, sometimes it's like, I have 3 people that I've talked to and they say they want to come on, but that's all the further the conversation got. And then I forgot to message them back, because that's just how the internet works now, because everybody's so exhausted. It's like, okay, fine, I have 9 unread messages. I'll finally open this and look at it. And it's just like, yeah, sounds cool. And it's just like, okay, I've pacified this conversation for another week. And you know, there's a lot of that goes on. So,
you know, as somebody who schedules episodes, that's one of the most infuriating things. Like, because I don't know if it's just like the tism or what, but like I've always been like for the most part, very on top of messages. Like if you message me, I'm messaging you back. Like maybe sometimes they'll go to the end of the day, but like before the end of the day, I'll message you back. I'm not like calling you out or anybody else or anything, but like there are times where like I'll message somebody and then like 3 weeks will pass and then I'll message them again. 2 weeks. I'm like, I give up.
Yeah. Well, I totally get that. I mean, I've done that to people as well on my end, where they're like actually interested in coming on my podcast. And because I was sluggish with my communication, by the time I finally, or like I should just say like, I'm booked for like 3 months. I'll get a hold of you again. But instead of saying that, it's just like, yeah, I'll get back to you. And then 3 months goes by and I'm just like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And they're just like, screw you, dude. Like I was trying to open a conversation with you and you were so vague about what was happening, when you could have just been like, I'm booked, you know, like I'll get a hold of you in March or something, you know, like instead of doing, you know, so I've run into those situations where I've been the person doing that, which is something, again, you like, my job right now is literally, I have taken my degree, which I'm a bookkeeper there, and I've taken my hobby, which is podcasting, and turned it into a job somehow.
That's crazy.
Like magically just fell ass backwards into money. So, you know, like that's like what I tell people. Like this is magic. This is so lucky. It came at a time where I got laid off from my other job because it was like we need a bunch of people for COVID stuff, and then COVID stuff was done, and then they laid off everybody they hired. You know, it's just the way it works. You know,
yeah.
You know, so like I was a victim of that or whatever, quote unquote. It's not a big deal, but that was a thing. So then I got this job, but it just makes me think about like the things that I did just like as my hobby and like how it translated to this. Like I've tried to tell people like just stick with your hobbies, because like those are the things that you're unfettered by money, you're unfettered by any sort of like burden to anything, and you just are learning for the sake of learning and enjoying something for the sake of enjoying something, and there's like no limit to the growth there. The limit is how much time you want to spend on these hobbies, whether it be playing guitar, which was another thing. I played guitar for years in bands that yielded almost no money, and now I play guitar and I actually make money doing it, you know, to the point where like at the end of the year it's like positive net revenue, and it's like, oh, I actually made money this year playing music, you know. It's not like
I have to pay taxes.
Yeah, which I did that actually, you know. This last year was like the first time I was just like,
sorry, I wasn't trying to rat you out.
no, but it was the first time where it was like measurable enough where it's just like I gotta do something, you know. I gotta actually like do the bookkeeping on this. That's the accountant mind though too.
Sure.
For a while you're like, it's a wash because I'm in two bands and one loses money and one makes money. So when you combine that into one thing, it's generally a wash. So
you're a better man than me, man.
I don't know, but I don't know. Doesn't mean I don't care. I don't care what you guys do. You guys do whatever you want to do, but tax wise. But that's kind of how I figured it. You know, I do the books. Just generally speaking, I do have like a giant logged journal of like, this was the date I played a show with this person and these many people were in the band, or it was like a duo show or whatever, a trio, or and I played it at this place and this was the town and this is how many dollars I got, and if we got tips this is how much it was, and we split it between this many people. And like I for some reason just like doing this kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so you know, maybe that's my tick. You know, I'm not good at communicating, but I'm good with numbers. I don't know.
That's funny.
But it does check out though. Like I get what you're saying. There's too many times where like people agree to do stuff now though, and they just don't do it.
Yeah.
So like, you asked me to be on the podcast, and I'm like, yep, what date? This date. Okay, sounds good. This time, and I just put it in my calendar, and I know I'll be there. But I'm sure you've been burned, and you know we all have been in those situations where you're just sitting there like, they said they'd be here at 2:00, and you're just sitting there and you're like whatever, and then 2:15, and then you're like message them like, hey, you coming? And then it's like 2:45 and they message you back. They're like, oh hey man, sorry, I'm busy. I gotta do something. I'll be there at like 3:30, and you're like, I already have something else planned, so like that's not gonna, you know, like
sure.
So there's been those situations, I'm sure, which is why you were just like yesterday. You're like, you're coming tomorrow? I'm like, yep. And then I'm like making coffee, and you're just like, hey, you coming today still? And I'm like, yeah, I'm still gonna be there. You're like, you know, so you just have to like double and triple check with people, which does kind of suck, but you know, that's just the way. Yeah. That's the way the world works now.
Well, and you know, now I kind of feel bad because I know when we first were initially going to do this episode, it was like in January.
Yeah,
I hate you. Like we were going to do it in January, and now it's August, and we're finally getting around to it. You know, but that's life.
That's also how it works, though, too.
Yeah,
like, we were talking about that before that, like. Last time I was on this podcast, it doesn't really feel like it's been that long ago, but it was a different studio.
Yeah.
You know, and everything was different. You know, you didn't have these lighting, you didn't have this, you know, setup or whatever. So like everything was different then compared to what it is now, and it was at a different location. And you know, when I love thinking about that kind of stuff because life goes by so fast that nobody ever takes the time to sit and like look at stuff as it's happening, and kind of like it's usually like, oh man, 10 years ago this happened. You're like, that was 10 years ago. Holy crap! And like,
yeah. But
we never sit to think about that kind of stuff. So like, I like to think about like, oh, this podcast episode was recorded in this studio location, or like this, you know, when we were in this studio, it had this setup or this backdrop or whatever it happens to be, and then kind of be like, man, where was I at in my life, and what was I kind of doing during that time span? You know, like during my podcast, there were points in time where like a lot changed in my life, and it's kind of fun to go back and re-listen to the episodes and kind of just pull my demeanor out of the episode and just be like, you can totally tell like at this point in my life, I'm like having, you know, more fun or less fun or like whatever it happens to be, which is kind of the damning thing about recording yourself every week for an hour and putting it on the internet.
You know, for me, it's like drinking or like when I used to still smoke cigarettes. Because there were episodes like 4 years ago, I guess 3-4 years ago, where like we would literally have like bottles of liquor on the table, and I would like toward the end of the episode, I'm slurring. I'm like, oh, I'm so drunk. I say something fucking stupid, and then like I go back and listen to those. I'm like, you dumb fuck. Like, what were you doing?
Everything in moderation. I'll tell you what, I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of people who have come on my podcast. I'm not gonna like pigeonhole anyone. I'm not gonna say who is doing what, but like one beer or two beers is a lot more entertaining in the long term than a whole bunch, like 5 or 6, you know, in an hour long podcast, which is like, to me, is also just like, I don't know if I could even drink that much liquid, you know, in an hour, but like, it's wild. I don't know. So like, that's just my take on it. I guess having like edited so many podcasts and recorded so many, like I've literally actually recorded and edited over 500 episodes of podcasts.
Wow.
In my life now.
That's crazy.
Like, which is not like, whoa, you know, people are just like, big deal, but it's like, that's 500 hours of content basically.
At least.
You know, that's pretty freaking wild.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So,
well, and you know, like, I think it's really cool that you're making that money and like you're actually like utilizing this for like a full-time job. I think that's awesome. That's something that I've seen jobs for that kind of stuff, but I've always wondered if like it, like what you talked about, where like this would kind of come on the back burner or like whatever, you know, I kind of wonder, but like, you know, it's interesting because like that, there's that incentive there, right? Like, oh, I could make money full time.
Yeah.
Doing this.
Or part-time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like, if you have a job that's like, I'm not saying this is a bad job, but like you work at a grocery store or a convenience store or whatever, you know, fast food, something like that. And this is just like your hobby. Like that's perfect for your off hours to just do something else. And it's not like this has to make you money. You can do it for the love of doing it because that's your hobby and you like doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just create content for the sake of creating content. And then eventually this could be something that you could make money on. I mean, like for a long time, my podcast had a coffee sponsor.
Yeah.
And the coffee sponsor was non-existent anymore. It was called Couchtown Coffee. I don't think it's still, I don't know. The website wasn't there last time I checked. So, but yeah, so they would like roast coffee and they would buy small batches of coffee and roast them. Like if you wanted like coffee, they would like roast it on, you'd order it on like Friday. They would roast it on Sunday and then ship it to you on Monday. So it was like day roasted. It was like fresh, which is like wild because there's not a lot of places doing that. And it was small batch. So it was really good, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But like I made an agreement with them and it wasn't even like pay me money. It was just like, if people buy this, and they, you know, like I tell them, like say Audible Farm sent you in the comments or whatever, and then you tally it up. If like X amount of people buy this, give me free coffee. And they were just like, okay. And then it got to the point where he would just be like shipping me coffee like every week. And it's like, this is almost too much coffee. Like I can't drink this much coffee, you know? So like that was like the agreement we made. And it ended up being like beneficial to both of us because he got a lot of, you know, new clients out of it and stuff like that. And I ended up getting free coffee. So, you know, you could end up just like turning something you like into just something that you can get little bits of free stuff out of, you know?
Yeah,
you never really even know quite exactly what it could be. So
that's like back in the days where I sold weed just so I'd have free weed.
I'm not sure. Is that a good analogy? I'm trying to think.
Anyways.
Yeah. Stay in school. No, I'm not sure if that is like the best analogy. Because like that's like, well, I guess yeah, you'd be selling podcasts to do a free podcast, you know. So like, but at the same time, like in retrospect, did you really enjoy the free podcast you got? You know, was it really beneficial to your life? No, I don't know, but like that's like one of the big things is just like making sure you're doing something for the love of actually doing something though. Like that's what any hobby is. That's like I found that's the best way to learn. Like you're not out there competing with anybody. You're not out there being like my income depends on this, because if like that's what you're thinking, then it's always going to be like I'm not making enough money for this. That's always what you're going to think, and that's never a good way to go about your day because you're just cutting corners. You know, even in your own personal life, if you're just like some guy playing guitar in the basement and you're just like, I'm not playing, you know, making money on this, and then you just throw it in the closet. Like, you could just be enjoying yourself here. You know, this is probably more beneficial than rewatching Seinfeld. You know, actually, I endorse both of those heavily because I rewatch Seinfeld a lot to the point where like, the funniest thing is like Netflix would be like sending me notifications like, hey, did you forget to finish Seinfeld? It's like, what, you mean for the 233rd time? No, I didn't forget. I'm just cruising through it slowly this time. Give me a break, you know?
I finished it in my head.
Yeah,
Netflix.
Usually you watch 9 episodes a day. We've noticed you're only watching 3, so something's wrong, obviously.
That's like the pizza place calling you like, hey, are you okay? You haven't ordered from us this week.
Just do a wellness check. Like policeman kicks in the door, like, we're here on behalf of Pizza Hut. We haven't seen you in a while. Domino's guy was worried.
That's why I call crony capitalism. No, but God damn, I lost my thought. No, but like I think I've fallen into that trap before, like very easily actually, like where I'm doing things in terms of like this is what I want to be successful in, because like I've like ever since I was a kid I've had this like thing where like I want to some kind of art or film, or I mean in my adult life podcasting type of thing where like I want that to be my thing and I want it to be successful. And I think a lot of times for me, this is just me personally, like that comes before the enjoyment sometimes. Like I still enjoy it, but like there's also this part where I'm like, okay, is this going to give the numbers that I need, which is going to give me the subscribers I need, which is going to have me start monetizing, which for a lot of people it's kind of a pointless thing to be thinking about, because like it takes so fucking much to get even a little bit monetized. Confused Breakfast, a great example. Like
amazing,
the great podcast,
best podcast in Iowa.
Yeah, probably
at one point in time, like they were like on the top 100 or something on iTunes.
They
or
had
something.
Bert Kreischer on their pod.
Wild.
But like I mean even them, like they just started getting monetized, but like I mean they still all have jobs. Like they're not like doing that full time, you know what I mean? Like it's just such a hard racket.
Honestly, yeah, it is. Like you said, like just to scratch to get all those subscribers, you know, and it's just like it just takes so much just to like, okay, I got 30 new subscribers this month. I got 50 new subscribers this month. I got 100 new subscribers, you know, this month, whatever it happens to be. It takes so much to get it out there, you know, and like what I found in the marketing world is the best way to get out there is to pay somebody money, you know. That's the dumb thing, the paid algorithm.
Yes, that's the hard thing about it.
But it works so well.
Yeah.
It works so well. And that's like the poison, you know, the poisoned well. You got to go back to this thing where it's just like this is your only option, but like it's slowly killing you as well, you know.
Yeah.
This takes a lot. And I understand what you're saying, like money versus like the enjoyment, where like I want to do stuff for money, but also like I have one thing that was like instilled in me from my childhood from my parents was like basically like not like get rich, but have enough money where like you're not going to be worried about it. So like tomorrow's sandwich is not going to be a concern to you. If you need a haircut, it's not a concern to you. If your car breaks down and you have to spend $500, it's not a concern to you. And it's a tough place to get to in this society, and I've been given different opportunities in my life in order to get to this place. But at the same time, I do that, and it's made me comfortable with being like, if I don't enjoy this and this is what makes me money, I can walk away from it for a short period of time and go to something else and just try that out, you know. So like a lot of my life is the inverse of what you were describing, where like it's all enjoyment. I've had hobbies where it's like, this is my favorite hobby, this is what I do all the time. For example, the Audible Farm podcast, I was just like, there was a point in my life where I just didn't enjoy it as much. It became work, you know, and it wasn't enjoyable, and I didn't have the correct perspective on life. I didn't have the correct perspective on my own podcast, and the reasons I was doing it were I wasn't measuring up to these like landmarks and things that I was creating. Like, I need to have this many viewers. I need to have this many new subscribers every month. I need to have this many people sharing everything. I need to have this many, and everything that I had in my brain where it's like, these are the metrics I absolutely have to meet. And if I don't, I'm not happy. And then I was just kind of like, well, I'm not happy doing this anymore. Cause that was what I instilled everything to up to that point, where like, it's embarrassing because now the podcast is back and it's a big deal again. But like back when it was like what I would call flat, I had like 200 to 300 listeners every week.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Of people just tuning in every week. You know, at the height of my podcast, I had 600 audio listeners a week.
Wow.
Which is insanity to think that, like, if you and I were sitting here, we would need a gymnasium with 600 people in it to fill it in order for us to have a conversation. Like, but in my mind, because the metrics were going down from 600 to like 200 or 300, I was just like, this isn't worth it anymore. Everything's on the downhill slide. And it was just insanely consistent downhill slide of a pattern. But some of that was probably because I was getting burned out doing it every week, you know, spending at least 5 hours a week and coordinating this every single week to do this thing, you know, and the enjoyment wasn't there. whatever the metric was I was using to measure it, the enjoyment wasn't there. So that's why I quit doing it. You know, it wasn't because it didn't make me money at that point in time. I had, you know, a Patreon, and that was how you viewed the episodes, because it was, you know, that's just the pattern I had built. So like if you wanted to watch it, you had to go on Patreon, and that's what people did. And I would put deals every now and then on there for the shop. So it's like, if you want a t-shirt, I can sell you what it cost, you know, basically just pay the shipping and here's your whatever 25% off discount or whatever.
Nice.
So I would do stuff like that for just the Patreon people, because they're paying me money every month anyways. But then it was just kind of like, you know, you take that for granted too, where it's just like, even if you're making 50 or 100 bucks off your Patreon, it's like, that's 50 or 100 bucks people are giving you just for doing this thing, you know. And it's like, well, I'm not making it rich. It's like, you don't have to make it rich. You just, this is something you were doing for fun, for no reason. You were just like sitting in basements with people talking about music, which is what you do. And now all of a sudden you're mad because you're only making $50 doing it. You know, like, you're mad because you're making money. You're mad because people are listening. Like, that doesn't make any sense, you know. And like, it took me walking away from it to remeasure how I wanted to look at it now. So
That's
now,
awesome.
so now I'm just like, I'm just putting the thing out there. If people watch it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. I'm not putting any extra work to put any extra shine into anything. It's still the same consistency and caliber as it was before, but at the same time, you know, like, it would be eating me up inside to be sitting here knowing I haven't made a post for this week's episode that I made, like, and it's 3 days after the episode came out. Like, it would be destroying me right now. But at the same time, like, right now, I don't care. Like,
Sure.
you know, then versus now, you know, you have to like learn from these mistakes, which is not easy and sometimes never fun in life.
Yeah, I think that's really admirable. I think that's a good way to look at it, and something I still struggle with. And you know, like the comments. Like that's the problem, dude. Is like, you have all that drive that you're talking about, and then you get like 1, 2, 3 bad comments, and you're like, "What am I doing with my life? This is bullshit."
We had that conversation online, actually.
Yeah.
And Mike Schulte from Confused Breakfast even chimed in.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's a wizard. If anybody knows Mike Schulte, the guy's just a genius when it comes to social media. He knows what people like, he knows what people want, and he knows how to do it authentically without coming across as somebody that's manufacturing it, which is the hardest thing to do in social media. So he does it with a Confused Breakfast podcast, the Pork Tornadoes, the band. You know, it's just super fun to watch him do stuff like that online. But like, we were basically just like, you were just like something like freaking internet. You can never win.
Yeah, you can never win with the internet.
And it's just like, dude, I posted something where it's like, band names are stupid sometimes, and they don't make any sense. And I just named a couple bands. It doesn't matter. Like, just think of a band. I'm in a band called Three Finger Betty. Stupid. If that was like on a poster for like a band that's playing in your town, you'd be like, the fuck is this? Like, you know, sorry for the F-bomb, but like, I don't know, I'm sure you can swear, but like,
you can swear as much as you want on this podcast.
So like, I don't know. It just makes me think about like, what are some of the dumbest band names you could, like, even like modern bands. Name a band that you think has a dumb name.
Def Leppard.
Okay, yeah. Like, what does that really mean? Like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I get that there's not a whole lot of tie between like the band name and the band, and there doesn't really have to be, because like, it becomes cliche when bands are just like Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer, and it's just like all these names are just like, bleh, you know, like, and not every band has to have a name that's really cliche. I get it, but it's just like Butthole Surfers. It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is a band that is like people know and love, and it's. But there's, you know, what's in a name, I guess, should have been like what I posed as the thing. But people were basically just like, you can't tell me Alice in Chains is a stupid band name. And it's just like, if that band never existed and that was like on a flyer, I would just be like, the hell is this crap?
They'd be concerned. They'd be like, who is Alice and why is she in this chain?
Yeah,
these
like,
chains. Where is she?
Oh, here we go. It's another band with face paint that's going to play down-tuned guitars and just be like, blah, 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 you know, or whatever. Like, that's what I would think, or like whatever, you know. So like, maybe there's not something, but anyways, basically I made this reel of it and I put it online, and it was basically like, I couldn't believe, like, it was just like, this guy's a moron, this is not a hot take, what an idiot, and just like all this stuff. And then you try and like do the thing where you just like justify it a little bit with a reply comment, because most of the time people will just not reply, but every now and then like somebody just like replies to your reply. So it's just like, whatever, this guy's a moron, and I'm like, you can't tell me every band name is like Profound or like Limp Bizkit, like, like that band name was made on purpose to be that way, but at the same time, like, I get it, it's just kind of like a weird, like, if that was on like a poster, I'd be like, what the fuck. But at the same time, like, I was just kind of like trying to like justify why I had said what I said, and the comment that he replied back was, nobody cares. And it's just like the most simple, like, this guy's a moron. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. And he just says, nobody cares. The perfect, like, double burn. He said like 6 words and just destroyed me. And it's just like, I want to just be like, you have 3 subscribers. Like, you have 900 views on your channel in 12 years. You have like original music on here. You suck. I wanted to just be like mean. And it's just like, he just wrecked me so hard. It was just like, I can't come back from this ever. So there's no reason to try. And yeah, that's basically what happened. And I was just like, this happened. And, you know, you had like similar situations. Like, I mean, you post a lot more polarizing stuff than I do.
Yeah,
but it's like kind of on purpose.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So,
but like that, you know, from that perspective, there are times where like I do actually ask genuine questions. Like I am actually like trying to make a genuine point, or like I am like trying to be sympathetic or understanding, and it's the same fucking thing, dude. And it's like none of the comments are like, you know, actually engaging with it. They're all just like, I watched 3 of your reels and I hate all of your opinions. You suck. You know, stupid shit like that.
Meanwhile, you're basically just like, you're stating an opinion but opening the dialogue. So it's like, this is how I feel, but if I'm wrong, somebody explain it to me. And everyone's just like, you're a freaking moron. And it's just like, it's like, well, you're not telling me what to do. Like, just because I clicked on your Facebook profile picture and you're leaning on a Fiero doesn't mean you're a cool guy. Like, tell me what the hell's going on, you know? Like, I need to know something here, you know? It's so bad the way the internet just reacts to that kind of stuff. One of the ones that you had like recently, and this is something that's really funny because I was just like, it was ingrained in me from my job, from my degree. I took it very seriously, like to actually go get this degree and think about it from an ethics standpoint. But like, is taxation theft? That was like something you had posed online, and you're just like, it basically is. And I mean, like, if anybody disagrees, let me know or whatever. And I was just kind of like, hey, let's talk about this or like whatever.
I'm telling you, you were the only person who responded well, besides Molly, because I had talked to her about it too. But I was like, yes, thank you. Like, let's talk about it in the podcast. Not a single other person. Everybody else was just like,
what a moron. I trust the government implicitly. Yeah. And this guy's just, and then there's other people who are just like, I haven't paid taxes in 30 years. And it's just like, you have though. Like, you don't understand.
And for me, it's like, fine. If you think that the government's all great, like, fine. That's okay. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm just asking this simple fucking question. And they can't even engage with it.
Okay, we're going to break this down. We're going to tie it into something.
Yes.
We're going to tie this into something. And I'll see how much I can broad stroke this to get it all like together. But like, do you like having roads? Do you like having police officers? You know,
no,
like,
that I don't.
Give me a second. If I would, well, I like roads when they're nice. If there was shitty roads everywhere, I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I like police officers when they're nice. You know, like, it comes down to everything. So like, to have all these nice things, you kind of have to have this oversight of people that are properly spending the money to make sure that the money that is dog-eared for certain things is getting spent properly on the things that it needs to get spent on.
Sure.
I hate like taking so long to fix roads, and then when they're fixed, they're still shitty. Like, that happens all the time. There's so many things like that where it's just like, this is a boondoggle. We wasted taxpayer money on this, and I get pissed about it and stuff. But that seems to happen a lot. So like, the problem is, like, I agree with taxation if it's done correctly, which I don't think it's done very fairly. And then on top of that, this will only work if the money is spent what it's dog-eared for and actually, you know, made to actually improve things. So like, if this is supposed to be for something, it should be for something, and it shouldn't be put in a slush fund that gets put in the general fund that then gets spent on anything it wants to. Some of that was like, I took classes on governmental accounting, and it was just kind of wild to see how everything set up for everything to be pristine and just the way it's supposed to be. And then it's like, and then here's the exceptions that allow you to get around all of that. And it's like, what? Yeah, okay, so you're under budget, so we take everything that's the extra money, we put that in the general fund, and we just waste that on whatever we want, and that goes to blah 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 blah. And it's just like, what the crap. So we have this problem where like, I want taxation to be there for certain things, but sometimes there's this like non-representation where we're so far away from the politicians making the decisions that even if I did or didn't vote for this person, I have no way of influencing this person's thought process on doing this. And this is people that have no discernible talents. This is people that have no discernible value in society other than the fact that they like possibly came from money or had the money or knew the people or were good at politicking or just like faking a smile at the right times with the right people to make sure that they got in there and said the right things when the cameras were recording.
Sociopaths.
100%.
Literally.
We were just talking about how you have to have a hobby in order to do things. So like between the last time I was on the podcast and now, I had done some online dating, and it was mind-blowing to see how many people out there didn't have any hobbies. When you ask them what their hobbies were, it's like, I like to go to breweries and wineries, and then me and my friends go boating and drinking on the weekends. And it's like, you're just saying I'm an alcoholic 4 times. Like, that's not, these aren't hobbies, you know? Like, what I like to do is I have a podcast, and they're like, you're an idiot. Why do you have a podcast? And it's like, because I have a hobby, you know? So like, I play guitar, and they're like, you're a loser. Why would you play guitar in bars? It's like, because people pay me money to do it. And, you know, like, I enjoy doing it. You know, this is like the escape I have or whatever, you know? So these are politicians. These are people that don't have any hobbies. Like, very rarely will you run into somebody that's like, this person was actually like a lawyer, or this person that like ran a patent house, or this person was an engineer, or this person was an XY. You'll find some of those, but a lot of times it's just like, this person was a career farmer and their dad owned 9 million acres of cotton farms, and like, and it's just like, sweet, like this, why do I want this guy in there? Or it's some guy that's just like, this guy's originally born in Arkansas and his dad is like a zillionaire and he moved to Omaha and now he's like a politician in Nebraska. You know, like, that's just I'm just making it up. That's probably not a thing, but like, there are those scenarios where like politicians will just like move to places and be like, I could crush this here because I'm a good politician and no one else is.
Kim Reynolds.
She's
originally from Minnesota, I believe.
It's mind-blowing to me. So I don't know that, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's like one of the greasier endeavors in life, is to be a politician. Like, the only thing greasier would be like a lobbyist. And that's like, oh, I don't have enough people to go argue on my behalf. Like, the politicians aren't doing it, so I have to hire like a group of people that go bug the politicians to tell them what to do. Yeah. And those are lobbyists. And it's like, so these are middlemen politicians that like,
yeah, exactly.
Big corporations have tons of money to pay people just to go talk to politicians all day and be in their ear and just follow them around and take them out to eat and whatever. Oh, they're going golfing. I'll go golfing with you, you know. And just, isn't it kind of weird how XYZ something, these people don't agree with us and we should change the way the world works? Nice shot, you know, like, all right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's inherently the problem with government, is people are inherently self-driven and self-motivated. Like, even if you have that beacon politician who's like really thinks that they're truly helping people for XYZ, it takes a matter of days them being in that system. And because you get forced with like, okay, what am I going to provide for first? My family or somebody on the street? You're going to pick your family every time. Yeah. The perspective that you're talking about is something that I felt for a long time, which is like kind of, I mean, I don't want to put a label on you, but it kind of sounds like minarchism in a way. Like, smaller, more necessary government, like for your roads or like to prosecute like violent offenders or whatever. The inherent problem with this, however, in my mind is, and why I'm now an anarchist, is that will always be corrupted. So even in the time frame that it is beneficial or quote unquote helps people, that is going to skew to the elite every time, even on a small scale. And I mean, you know, just the fact in my mind is that it is coercive. It is a system that's based on theft and violence. And in my mind, I think a private option, although not utopic, not perfect, it is always better. There's actually I can't remember what state it is. Might have been Michigan. There was actually a time where KFC, there were roads that were not being taken care of, and KFC actually went in and, you know, not built the roads, but they fixed the roads. And I think roads is actually a really good example of something that where you see classism even divide even more. It's like, you go West Des Moines, the roads are great, right? You go South Side Des Moines, you go East Side Des Moines, the roads are shit. And that's not an accident. It's because like there are certain tax dollars that are allocated to certain parts of the city, and then there's tax dollars that are not there. Yeah. Right. And like that's not an accident.
No, it's like, well, the whole thing is like this property is worth more, so we can tax people more for it. That's XYZ, and then we get more money, we can fix the roads because we have more money. Whereas in a place where they're not generating revenue, that's just the way it works. XYZ, blah blah blah. But that's like this whole like system that is set up that everyone's like, this is the system and it's set up this way, and it's like, well, this is just how the world works, and it's unfortunate. Like, poor people have to live in crappy areas that are like in floodplains, and they put us here on purpose. And it's like, well, nobody puts anybody anywhere, but you don't really have a whole lot of other options either, though, too. So that's the double-edged sword that we run into. Like,
yes,
the bigger cities, it's kind of rougher, but I mean, I don't know what to say, like I am a minarchist or any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to put that label on you, sorry.
But I get where you're coming from, though, too, where like I think in my generally thinking, like in a town of like, a few hundred to a few thousand people, like, up to a certain point, it's a lot easier to make changes than it would be where it's like a whole country. Like,
yes,
to change the way the oversight board that oversees everything in America, the federal government, it's going to be nearly impossible to make a change on that level. But like, it's going to be pretty easy to change out a city council member, or somebody that's sitting on the county supervisor board, or whatever. Like, it's going to be a little bit easier in that sense to kind of put somebody in there that you would want to. The community is going to listen to itself and put the right people in there to do the right things for the most part,
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be like the benefit of it. But you did bring up a good point with like roads is funny because we keep coming back to it. So like if you go here to Chicago, there's like 2 routes to take in general sense. And like you can take a toll road or you can take the interstate. And the toll road is a private road. That's why it's a toll road. It was built by private entities to be that way. And then you pay to get on it, and you pay to get off of it, or pay later or whatever.
Sure.
But that's why it is the way it is. So that road actually is pretty nice, like comparative to the interstate. But again, like you also got to think like how much it takes to like fix an interstate. You have to like shut it down and divert everyone over to the other lanes, and then you're double wearing down the other lanes. And, and then by the time you get the one fixed, that one's ruined and you need to fix it. Now you're wearing down the thing you just built brand new.
Exactly. Well, and in that example, there's an element of choice.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want to use that private road, it makes sense. Okay, you got to pay a certain fee to go on that road. And then the road that you don't have to pay for, you're still paying for. It's still not of your paycheck every time.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, like you said, that's a lower quality. So you're getting money stolen from you and it's not even working.
Okay, so I get where you're coming from. So it's not something you're ever going to utilize. So you're spending money on something you can't ever use, or like may choose not to use.
And that's why, like, I think like if it was voluntary, like you talk about how like a city council would be more efficient. Well, I think would even be more efficient than that would be a business.
Okay,
because then there's a voluntary exchange. There's this, there's a really good example that I heard in a podcast. If you had the post office, UPS, FedEx all get together and say, okay, we're going to charge $1,000 to have a package shipped overnight, what would happen next?
Well, I mean, that's they're creating a monopoly. They're like doing the whole backwater scenes. So that's like illegal to do that first and foremost.
Well, okay,
like,
sure.
That it doesn't ever happen in industries, but
sure. But that aside, what would be the natural, if there was no like restrictions or anything, what would be the natural step?
Somebody else would come in and make a new one.
Exactly. They would create another business.
Yep.
So I think when you have things be voluntary, even if it's not utopic, even if in that even in that time frame where you have to kind of sort everything out business wise, it's going to be more voluntary. It's going to be more fair. And I would actually argue that, like when we talk about going back when we talked about how somebody's on the street, right? Somebody's in a poor condition. I would argue a big part of why that's the case is because of the same system, is because of this government system. Now, it's not saying if you remove that person would automatically not be on the street, but I think they would be far better off without that system than with the system that, in my opinion, put them there in the first place, or is at least a big part of what put them there in the first place.
So the road one is interesting too, because like with the roads, you think, so like, all right, Taco Bell owns the road from here to 4 blocks away, and then KFC owns the road from here to over there, and then Pepsi owns the next road, and then, but like, how do you pay all these people for being on their private roads? And how do they decide they're going to, like, what if Pepsi's just like, well, we're a mega corporation, we're just going to make a bridge over everyone and just make our road up top here. In order to get on here, you have to be a Pepsi Gold member or whatever the hell. Like at what point in time? So like, that's the first and foremost. Like, that's why utilities are almost always municipal, because it's just like, otherwise you'd have like 98 water hookups that had to be drilled to your house with 98 different pipes underground from all these people that are going to ship you all your water. Same thing with electricity, same thing with internet. That's why a lot of internet companies are going municipal now, especially in smaller areas. It's just like, well, we just have a whole municipal internet company now. It's just run by the city because it's easier this way. We don't have to bury fiber cables 487 times. These companies don't have to coordinate with each other, so when they know when somebody's digging a hole, it's like we'll pay part of the fee and we'll just bury stuff in your cable and the conduit with it. And so instead of doing that, now it's just like, well, we just have the city internet. That's the thing now. Or whatever it happens to be. So there is benefits to at least that aspect, because like I couldn't imagine what it would be like because at that point it would just you run into the thing where it's like, well, if I have Bob's water, they pay for the water coming in, but everything coming out, I have to pay for that as well, because they have extra fees. And then I signed this big contract and I can't get out. It's like a Verizon thing or something where it's like, I pay $150 a month and I can't get out of it because if I do, I have to pay them an extra $48 billion because that's the contract I signed. And so you do run into like the possibility of things getting muddy with these corporations if that was the route you go. If they don't want to play ball with each other, and plus, how do you split it all up? If like I'm using Bob's water over to Steve's water, and then generation whatever water, and then it's city water. So like,
well, it's funny that you use the water example because think of what's happening now.
What is happening? I guess like down here with the water down here. Yeah, I don't live in Des Moines.
You're good. Yeah, I mean the central Iowa water problem is horrendous, and I actually think if you had more private options, that would offset a lot of that. Like you would have. If Bob's water was chemicalized, then you'd be like, okay, now I'm going to go Steve's water because Steve's water is fine. Instead of having everybody rely on this water system and then everybody gets fucked when the nitrous levels raise,
Well, that's the problem is like there's not any accountability. And I'm not saying like we should find one person responsible and fire them because they didn't do their job. Like we need to find a way to be like, what was the problem here? Let's have freaking transparency here. There's no communication. There's no... Again, accountability. It's just like, this is a problem. Everyone, you have to like boil your water or don't drink it or go buy bottled water or something. Like, did something happen and somebody owns stock in Culligan or like, what's the deal here?
But see, I kind of disagree. Like, I think if you are truly the cause of that problem, you should be fired.
Well, I mean,
you should there should be accountability.
But it wasn't just like one person that was standing at like a valve that was just like, my job is to open this valve and close it every 5 seconds and I didn't do it and now I'm fired or something like. So it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be one person, but like, I mean, you look at like this has not been a first time issue. There was like wastewater flowing into this water table for a long time from northern Iowa because it was farmers and all the chemicals coming off of all their fields through all the drainage ditches, and it wasn't filtering it out the way it was all supposed to through all these ditches. Mm-hmm. And then by the time it got into the water table here, it was like there's a lot of stuff from upstream. They tried to like sue people upriver, which sounds like some super like 1800s BS. It's like, we're suing the people upriver because they're washing their clothes in here and I don't have any, or like whatever. So it's like one of those things. It seems very like underdeveloped country kind of stuff that's happening, which is like freaking mind blowing. I don't know. I don't know. I've come from farming country, so I kind of like see it a little bit closer than everybody else, like maybe down here. But everyone, it's like not hard to drive 20 minutes in one direction and see a field. So you kind of just get this gist of like, this is the way it is and I don't know how to change it. Like, how do you change some of these things when it gets to be so big that it's like, this is a multi-trillion-dollar operation that's being run here and we all kind of just play by the same rules? And how do you influence anybody to change the rules?
Well, to that point, I think a big part of why we have these multi-billion-dollar companies or whatever is because of that same entity, the government. Like, what makes a corporation a corporation? It's because they are tied in with the big banks. They, like during COVID, right? Like all these companies, they got bailouts from the government, or back in 2008, all these banks got bailed out from the government while the small mom and pop shops went under, right? So, I mean, there's a reason inherently why, like you talk about like we have KFC own this and Pepsi own that. Like, for me, I always ask like 2 questions. Why is this the case? And what's the alternative?
Okay.
And going to like the road thing. So like, let's say you have like Pepsi, they monopolize the area, they build all these roads, whatever. That could happen, yes, but there is at least a precedent there where like if it was like, let's say it was not community owned. There was like a community and they were like, oh hey, well this road helps me, to get to A, B, but like I can't get to C, so then I'm not gonna go buy Pepsi. Like I'm not gonna buy Pepsi or what. I'm not gonna buy this product. And I'm not saying that everyone's gonna do that every time because people, like I said, people have self-interest.
Yeah,
and they're not necessarily like gonna take this big moral stand, right? But I think you also have to think, okay, like why is Pepsi like this in the first place? And throughout history, it is always because there's some government entity that gives them some amount of money, or there's a person who worked in government and they have all these funds that are from that same entity, and then they start a business. And like my joke before, like that's crony capitalism. That's not free market capitalism.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I still think that there's going to be this weakness that comes down to everything, though. Like, there's always going to be a thing where, like, since we're such creatures of convenience, we're like, imagine, like, this city has roads already in, and they're just like, we're going to open up the water where if anybody wants to do water stuff, they can. But we're not going to let people just tear up the roads and go through people's, like, front lawns and their property and just wreck everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's where...
So what if they're just like, okay, so now what we're going to do is, like, if you want to lay down water pipe, we're going to dig up this road on this date, and if you have the money and if you have the piping and you want to lay something down, you can lay it down here. I don't care how many people want to come in and do it, you can do it. But now you're just only opening up again to the people that have the money and the corporations that are going to be the big evils that are just like, well, we control the water now too. So now it's KFC water. Guess what? Like, you're stuck with it. You know, this is Anheuser-Busch water. Like, you don't get any other choice, you know.
Sure.
We're the only ones that brought it out here, and you have to pay us money. You know, you're going to end up with that kind of thing where there's going to be some weird stuff happening when it's all privatized. Because, I mean, for us to be like, oh, yeah, the government's evil and everything that's run privately is less evil. You know, it's like you're still going with the lesser of two evils. And even then, like, maybe even still, because, like, this is something really crazy. So government is not beholden to short-term earnings or shareholders, but like entities are. So they're willing to do shady things short term just to get this money to be like, shareholders, look, we did the thing for you.
Yeah.
You know, so they're okay with that. But like government is kind of just like playing weird long term bets a lot of times.
Well, I mean, government does shady things all the time, but we accept it as normal.
Oh, that is true.
Like taxation.
Well, I mean,
right? Like, maybe we can answer the original prompt here, but like I said, like if you went to an ATM, I held a gun to your head and I was like, okay, give me money. I'm going to give it to a poor person, or I'm going to give it to build the road. You would view that as wrong. But when the government steps in and does that, we all kind of accept that that's okay.
There are aspects of it that I actually like, I'm okay with. So like the inverse of that is like, would I rather go to the ATM and know that I can get all my money, or would I rather go to the ATM and have somebody stab me in the gut for $20 to get a ham sandwich? You know, like if they're that poor and they're willing to go to these lengths to get $20 from me just to get food, I would rather just give up a little bit of my money every year to go to food stamps so that somebody could use it. The inverse of that
buy
is
a gun.
The inverse of that again is I've worked in the grocery industry long enough to see that the food stamp usage and abuse is like rampant and absolute insane.
It's insane.
And not only that, but to know what people go through to get either get or retain their food stamps, and they're like jumping through hoops to make sure. It's this weird game people play where they're jumping through hoops to make sure they look poor enough that entities will give them money.
They'll literally avoid getting jobs.
Yeah,
so
and they're working harder at this just to make like...
Going back to Seinfeld, it's like George when he's trying to get unemployment.
Oh my gosh, it's
like,
so insane.
He's working hard. Like he should get hired by a company because he's working so hard.
Yeah, it's so insane. I don't know. Again, that's hot take or whatever, but like I don't know. Some of this people are always like, well, it's just because you're raised different or you have different opportunities or this is, but like I just think some of this again comes down to ethics. So like
I agree.
Like I talked about it with my degree. I have an accounting degree. I believe that there's a fiduciary responsibility every accountant has to do the right thing. Ethics have to be involved at least as much as profitability has to be involved, because you're not there for finance. You're there for accounting. You're there to keep the books straight and to make sure everything is being spent and done the right way it's supposed to be done. You're not there to be like, we need more profits. That's what a finance person is there for. So finance equals future money, accounting equals past money. And you're just making sure that everything that goes where you touch the future money is the right way. You know, like that's where you're meeting up to. So like I always feel like there has to be this thing where like there's no accountability. Nobody ever looks back at the books and just says, man, we wasted a lot of money on this. And the closest we ever got to that was like the absolute insanity that was Elon Musk and Donald Trump teaming up to do the whole Doge thing. When that was like the wildest boondoggle I've ever seen in my life. And they were just like, it's like, oh, we're taking money away from this for this. We're taking money away from that for that. But there were things that were getting reported where it's like, I don't know if I can believe anything that's coming out about this, because it's just like, one of the craziest ones I found was like the government spent like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to make like the most efficient beef jerky. And it's for like the military in case they need a situation where like they need protein on the go. It's like, this is ancient war techniques where they used to, the battling troops that had like the most protein won almost every time. So they would like, that's where cured meat came from, and that's where like beef jerky and things like that. So they were like, how can we make the best beef jerky or the best jerky with the most protein to give to like war people that are out fighting if we need to? Are they actually doing that? No. Like they didn't have an agreement with Jackal Inc. or anything. It was just like they were just doing it because like, we got money, let's study it. And it's like, is that a good use of money? You know, like I don't think so. You know?
Well, and that's what I actually really liked about Doge. I mean, I think that's a part of why it broke apart is because, you know, Trump wasn't actually able to clean the swamp. Like people always say like, oh, Trump's going to drain the swamp. He's really going to drain the swamp this time. And he never fucking did. He never will. He never does. He is the fucking swamp. But like, and like, again, I think that's why that whole thing failed. But like, there were a lot of things that came from that were really eye-opening. I think that were like, oh my God, they're really spending this much money. And you can say, yeah, well, it's the government. Maybe they're lying. Sure. But like, I'm going to believe that more than the other side of the story, which is just like every single dollar we get is being used efficiently and nobody is like, you know, falsely profiting from it or whatever. Like, I'm going to believe that more than
nobody's ever insider traded ever. That was a politician that makes choices on business decisions and the way that companies can interact with one another.
Yeah.
They've never once been like, I should probably invest in this. And not only that, like when they catch people doing that, which they have recently several times, like they eventually just turned a blind eye to it enough where it's like acceptable now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Well, because they all profit off it, right? And
that's the game, though. Like you said, if there was a clean politician that went in there and was just like, we all shouldn't be doing this, you know, if they went into the Senate and did that, every person in the Senate would turn around and just be like, get this dick out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, every single person.
Every single time.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. And they're going to find a way to exclude you and not involve you in anything. And then you're going to look like a non-productive representative of a community because your name's not involved in anything that's going on politically. And then they're going to oust you and you're going to get somebody else in there. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like even your own side will turn on you when that stuff happens.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, like when you're talking about like these companies are going to have this money, I think that is like a fair argument against anarchism is like the vacuum argument. It's like, okay, you know, you think taxation is theft, whatever, and you want a voluntary trade. But if you were to just take away the government, you're still going to have all these companies that are worth billions and trillions of dollars. And they are going to have, they may possibly have monopolies in effect. That is true. However, I just don't see how then using the thing that caused the problem to solve the problem, I don't see how that makes any sense. And I would be more willing to have a fallout like that vacuum, you know, have a fallout of that and have that vacuum work as it will, because I think eventually that will lead to a better solution than this continual thing where it's like we have these band-aid solutions. We're never actually going to solve anything. And the people at the top are just going to rake in, taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't agree because I don't think that like letting the whole place burn down is the correct thing. But like what we're talking about here is like, I forget what it is. There's like this allegory of this ship that it's floating on the seas like endlessly, and slowly it needs rebuilt. So they replace every piece of wood on this ship throughout time as it floats around for like 100 years. And then by the time it comes back to dock, is it the same ship if every single piece has been replaced on it? And that's kind of what politics are. That's kind of what America was set up this way. It's like, well, let's change it this way. Let's change it that way. Let's make new laws. Let's do some other stuff. Let's say it's okay to do this and not okay to do that. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not actually written in laws. It's more of an ethics argument, and you can't really make it a law. And if somebody tries to argue it, then we're going to have like the best lawyers because we have all the money because we broke all these ethical things because they're not actually laws. And that's kind of what politics has become. That's what taxes have become. How much money did you make? This much. Give us this much in taxes. All right, sounds good. Like it's simple. And then people are just like, actually, if I do it this way, it doesn't look like I made any money. And they're like, all right, sounds good. And that goes on for a few years until the government's like, wait, we're not getting any money. And they're like, you can't do this anymore. If you want to do this, it has to be done this way. And so you just play the game for a couple of years, and you're like, actually, if I do the new form this way, it looks like I didn't make any money. And then that goes on for a while until the government's like, wait, we're not getting as much money from this thing anymore. And they're like, well, you can't do this anymore. You can only do it this way. And you're just like, oh, okay. And then you do it that way. And eventually you're just like, well, if I do it this way instead, then I don't have to. And they call these like tax loopholes.
Yeah.
And they are like literal actual things where like the tax law on this is vague enough where like the government could come back on you or could not. There's no argument to say that they could or couldn't. Then you can get a lawyer and argue them and maybe even win. And that's why a lot of people take these bets on these tax loopholes. But some of them don't get closed because the people that have the ability to change it just kind of don't because they're benefiting from them. Or you end up with a thing where like the Tax Cuts Jobs Act, which was like the original Trump tax act that he had the first time he was in, it was going to sunset, which he extended a lot of stuff on, and which was in the one big beautiful bill. Fucking weird ass world we live in. Anyways, so like some of that stuff where it's like this actually benefits a lot of normal people, but there's shit buried in here that benefits like super rich people even more. And because we're like, oh sweet, I get $200 extra at the end of the year from the government, and like we're like okay with it when meanwhile somebody else is just getting millions back, and it's like that's the thing is they give us a tiny slice of the pie and then they're just like we don't see what they're getting because we're both getting something. So we're thinking like not we're taking qualitative and not quantitative. Is that what I'm thinking of? We're like I got one, you got one. It's like but your cookie is so much bigger than mine. Like I don't think that. I'm just like, well, you have a bigger cookie because you need a bigger cookie. Well, but you don't need a bigger cookie.
It's more like you got 1 and I got 10. And then 5 years down the road, that cookie isn't going to be worth anything.
That's pretty much what it is. Yeah. You had to eat it to survive. Meanwhile, they had so many they couldn't even eat them all.
Yeah. And then the next year you won't have a cookie.
Yep.
Like that's essentially how.
And then you have to worry about them being like, we gave you another cookie.
Yeah. But I think that I think that also like highlights like a big inequity that's just like baked into the cake of government. Like it will always serve the elite before the people that's intended to help.
Well, it's that way everywhere though. Like privatized, it's the same way.
Sure, but there's something voluntary about that at least.
No. Okay, so like CEOs used to make it was like 20 times the amount of the average worker, which is like a lot of money, but that used to be like into the 70s. I can't remember what the shift was. I can't remember if it was the Reaganomics or whatever the hell it was going on. There's something that happened there where now like the average CEO is like 400 times more than the average employee.
Sure.
Which is like, that's a lot of weird stuff happening in a short amount of time for us just to be okay with CEOs getting that money. So like I got laid off from a big corporation. That's a public corporation. That was the company I was referring to earlier. You could look it up. It's probably pretty obvious what it is given the area and like the company that hires and lays off a bunch of people. However, their CEO, so they we're still netting a profit every year I was there. And then the last year I was there was one of the biggest earnings they ever had. And then they laid off a whole pile of people and their CEO got a $26 million bonus.
Yeah, but you don't think the government had anything to do with that? You don't think that like he got lawyers to help with that, or that he got his company had some kind of grant system or what? Like no, it wasn't completely voluntary.
The government should step in and be like, you're not allowed to do this anymore, if anything. Because we've all just been like, they've just stretched it. Like, what if I make 20 times more? What if I make 40 times more? What if I make 80 times more? What if it now? Well, how about 120 times more? Sure. What if I give myself a little bit bigger bonus, a little bit bigger, to the point where it's just like, why do you think you deserve this $90 million every year, and you only get to pay me $60,000 or whatever it happens to be? Like,
sure.
It's livable, but barely. It's not like I'm living comfortably, like easy to buy a house. Like my buying power that I'm earning versus buying a house now is so much worse than it used to be. I mean, there's a lot of those things that I think that just because we're just like, this is just the way it is, and nobody's stepping in to do anything about it, we're just like okay with it. We have this skewed view of everything with this like rose-colored glasses that aren't rose-colored. I don't know what to call them, but we just think like, oh, somebody's in charge and they took a risk and they had the money and they decided to do this, so they deserve more and stuff. It's like, well, what about me? I took a risk knowing that I would come in here and my paycheck would cash. I took a risk knowing my job would be here next week after I completed it. I took a risk thinking that my boss would actually bring me enough work to do that I have job security.
Well, there's always risk.
There's risk on all sides, but I think we just like look at this thing where it's like, this person ran a company, they deserve millions, and I deserve whatever somebody deemed as like the livable wage for my area.
Yeah, but
there's no merit based on like actual work involved, and like the CEO does not deserve that much money.
I mean, I think a CEO takes a lot more risk than the employees. Well, they have to set up the company. They have to like...
Not always, because like you look at the company I was involved in, like this person came in from somewhere else and the board was just like, yeah, you're the CEO. And it's like, it's not like he started the company.
Well, okay, maybe not like that in that case, but I'm talking about like if you're someone who starts a company, like that's a very big risk. That's a far bigger risk than the people that they employ.
Yes and no, depending on how you want to start the company. Like if you want to start a company by being like, bank, give me $500,000, I want to start something. That's one thing. Where like, I mean, I've seen companies started where it's like, give me $5,000. And then before the end of the year, it's just like, well, now I have $100,000.
Okay,
because they found a model where it's like, if I start with this and work my way up to that and scale properly, it'll work. Where like I've seen a lot of companies where like they start with a lot of money and end up with nothing, and then they're bankrupt.
But see, when you're talking about like taking a loan, that's not like that whole system is predicated on the government. Like they're covered by the banks are backed by the government, so like they can't really fail. Like they're too big to fail, etc. So like, yeah, if the mob has a bunch of money and then they start a business, like, yeah, I wouldn't consider that free market capitalism. I would consider that crony capitalism.
So you can only start a company with money that you already have, that you've gained.
Money you already have, or is like voluntarily given to you. Sure, like if you have like angel investor, or like, hey, Bob, you got $5,000. I want to start a company. You know,
but the only way to get this money is to play the game that we've already set up, though.
Well, yeah.
So you have to,
I'm not denying that, but the whole system is predicated on that same government system.
Again, I really don't think it's so much a system as it is just, this is the way everyone has agreed that it's okay to be done here. Because if you go to another country, it's not like that. There's other countries that have like laws set up so that this doesn't happen. Then there's other countries that are even more lawless than ours, where it's just like there's like a handful of trillionaires and everyone else lives in caves. You know, like, so there's a lot of wild places out there, and I don't think this is a good, like this isn't bad, but it's not good, like especially when you compare it to like other places we could be. But I just think that everyone has just kind of been pacified by what I call simple luxuries. Everyone can afford a smartphone. Everyone has a big ass TV. Everyone has Wi-Fi. We can all watch Netflix and HBO and Paramount and pacify ourselves to no end. And sweet, there's more UFC, and there's a new Bachelor on, and like all this crap, and we're just like so okay with just being pacified by everything.
See, I would argue that that's great.
Is it though?
Yes.
To just not
it's
not
far
worry.
better than the alternative.
Well,
the alternative is like poverty.
The alternative is actually doing something about all this stuff, because like while we're all pacified by all this stuff, like everyone, we're just like, yeah, the CEOs are making 400 times whatever the average worker. I don't care. That's all right. Doesn't bother me one bit. And because I'm rewatching Seinfeld. That's all that matters to me, is as long as I can punch out and go home and watch Seinfeld.
Yeah, but
so like if we all like, there's no ownership in this, but again, like there's no real person to go tattle on. There's no real person to just be like, my politician, I need if I wrote them a letter, they wouldn't even get it. That's how that works. There's no person I can go to be like, we need to change the way that this works.
I guess this goes back to one of my questions, like, what's the alternative? The alternative is like all the money that the CEOs own goes to the government, and then we have the Soviet Union, where people don't have their NFL or their HBO or whatever. Like they are in the streets in poverty, like waiting on the government to give them things. They have a bread line. Oh, sorry, we're out of bread. You're fucked. Like that's the alternative.
Well, maybe they actually spread the money around to the other people a little bit, instead of being the ones that have to pay all the taxes on it.
But they never do.
I know, but that's again, this comes down to ethics. So there's like a lot of people have a lack of ethics, where it's just like, you got one glad hand, the other one's behind. It's like you're just like, you don't know what I have in this hand already, but I already have my other hand out saying, give me more. Like there's no reason that corporations and companies, it's like so like this corporation I got laid off from made enough money at the end of the year when they had all their books balances and everything's paid and everything's squared away, that they were just like, we have 26 million extra dollars we can just give this guy when his base salary is $6 million a year. Like, so you essentially are just telling me like, you've ripped off every single customer you have to the tune of having so much extra money that this guy deserves 4 times his salary.
I'm not saying that he deserves that, but I think that's wrong. I don't agree with that.
Where do we draw the line on this, though? We were like okay with so many companies just being like, yeah, this is what everything costs, and at the end of the year, it's like you guys drew like $1 billion worth of revenue.
Okay, but like again, I think the reason why they have that money is because of the same. It's because of inflation. It's because of the same government system. When a market is unregulated, it gets cheaper over time. When a market's regulated, it gets more expensive over time. Like every time you look at TVs. they've gone way cheaper. You look at healthcare, you look at oil, they get more expensive over time. Like, this is just if you look at like Austrian economics or whatever, like this is like, and you know more about economics than I do, to be fair, but like from what I understand, like that's how that works. And I would be willing to bet that that plays a big part into why he was able to take the $26 million.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. So, like, the middleman between us and oil is the government. In theory, there are companies that go in and out with it, but then there's taxing, and then there's imports and blah blah blah.
Yes,
but there's like kind of one,
and then they have legal team
and that's why like most gas just kind of costs the same amount. But also like that is what these companies have kind of decided. Like, I have to compete with somebody, but not so much that whatever. But like, think about it, like, I'm not going to name, but like just go with your like, your Texacos or your BPs or whatever all these places are. And maybe some of them don't even exist anymore. But like, so like all these different places, they kind of just like look around and like, this is what the market says everybody will pay. And they kind of just go with it. And I feel like everything is so skewed now where everyone is okay with overpaying to an extent as long as something is like convenient. So
well,
like,
yeah, definitely.
So like in Humboldt, we have gas stations, but gas in Humboldt is like 20 cents more expensive than Fort Dodge, which everyone's in all the time. So like, why is it more expensive in my town than one town over? It's not like that's like, oh, we drove it an extra 20 miles, so this is how much it costs. They just know that there's nowhere else to go, so our whole town has just agreed to rip everyone off, kind of, is the market that has been created. And until people decide to go somewhere else and not apply themselves to this market, they're just going to leave it there. So like that's like the free market thing does work, but at the same time, if there's not another alternative, it might not work. And I guess if the government is the only other alternative and you don't have another one, then maybe you don't actually have a free market. Maybe you're right.
But I mean, I guess this is why I go to just saying that, like, I don't think free market is a utopia. Like, I don't think when there's a free market that like it's good for everybody, that nobody gets ripped off, that like these bad things don't happen, but is still far better than the other way around.
Yeah,
that's my argument.
I mean, I can see that, because otherwise, instead of just passing through one channel, you at least have the
instead
other
of it being 20 cents more, it's $5 more.
Yeah, and it's just like, this is
because there's literally no market. It's just the government has just the product, and then they can artificially put it at whatever amount they do. And every time throughout history you see the government get bigger and bigger and bigger, that's the kind of stuff that happens.
Yeah, but I, again, don't believe that just letting it all fall into the hands of corporations. I feel like it's going to be a continuation of what we're seeing now, where corporations just want more and more and more money, and they just start consolidating and buying one another. And it's just like, it's no different than all these tech companies like, oh, you came out with a new way to stream something or a new way to capture a thing, or I'm going to buy this app before it gets big, and I'm just going to squash it so it doesn't ever exist because it'll compete with what we have. And
well, and again, I mean, this goes back into the vacuum argument. Right, I think that is a legitimate argument against that my worldview of capitalism and free market and anarchism or whatever. That is like a really legitimate counterpoint that I actually struggled with for a long time, where I was like, okay, like, yes, like I said before, like if you do get rid of the government, there are still these power forces, and like what happens? I guess I don't know. I just find it inevitable. Like, there will always be people at the top, there will always be people at the bottom. And we'll have to abide by that to a certain extent. But I think the more voluntarism you have, the better.
Do you ever think people are voluntarily at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 100%.
So there's people that are at the bottom that know they're at the bottom, and they know if they were doing things differently, they could not be there. And they just don't want to change anything they're doing. And
I 100% agree with that. Yes.
Okay. All right, good. I want to get that out of the way, because I was like, there is the top and there is the bottom, but there's also this argument that like, no matter how much, like the argument I always told someone, and I love analogies, but like, I'm more than willing to help somebody out of a hole if they're like stopped digging this hole and they have their hand up like this and they're like, help me out. But I'm not going to reach down to try to pull somebody out of a hole that's actively still face down digging the thing deeper.
Well, that's charity.
And
you know, for as much flack as you can give these corporations, a lot of them do have charitable programs. Now, yes, they get tax benefits and stuff from that,
And
whatever.
how many charities actually, how much of the money actually gets to the people that need the stuff?
Sure, but I think a big part of that is because of the same system, because they have, it's like a legal loophole, right? They'll be like,
Bingo.
Yeah.
You got to pay people to do the stuff for the nonprofits.
Exactly. But that's not actually charity. It's like a face for charity.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as like opening. It's not the same as like, you know, a bunch of business owners are like, hey, we see a lot of poverty around. We don't really like that. Maybe we should open up a soup kitchen. And then they all get together. Like, that's actual charity.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. Like, I think this is something the left does a lot. Not to like pigeonhole anyone, but like, I think a lot of leftists will view like everybody in poverty as like being that person that's like, oh, like I just can't get there, when that's just not the case. Like, it's like with healthcare, you know, like you want to give everybody healthcare. It's like, okay, you want to give the person who is born with cerebral palsy, who like is in a wheelchair and like is like drooling, like they can't do anything themselves, and then the guy who like has chain smoked his whole life, he has stage 4 cancer, like you really think that they should get the same amount of healthcare? Like again, if you want to give the person that money, fine, but like if you're gonna take money from me against my will and disperse it, you think that should be dispersed evenly. And a lot of people on that side, the side of the aisle will say yes, but I think it's reasonable to say like, yeah, like if you don't fucking take care of yourself, like why should people be forced to help you with that?
Yeah, I remember seeing like the equity versus equality argument like a lot online, where it's just like you get one and I get one, but like the one we both got wasn't the same. You know, like we brought it up earlier as well.
Sure.
But you know, I have a ladder to pick apples from an apple tree, and so do you. But my ladder's taller, and I have a bigger bucket to put them in. You know, like there's this thing where it's like just because we both have ladders, you know, like, and then figuring out who deserves what is also like not always easy, because like everybody makes mistakes in life, you know. So like being somebody who might be somebody that's like a smoker, you know, like it's, you know, maybe they didn't want to do this their whole life, you know, and maybe it's just, they just got addicted and fell in with the, you know, the whole routine of it all, and now they're just a pawn in this big game that is addiction. And
Sure.
do they deserve not to live as much as anyone else? You know, like that's a freaking crazy argument.
Yeah.
But healthcare in general, I do want to say, is just absolute insanity right now. Like you have to like study it in order to, you have to study how the healthcare system works in order to go to a goddamn doctor now. And it's so mind blowing. I hate, let's just like, all right, so like, you run, it's like, so I have to learn about insurance. So like what's co-pays and what's premiums and what's all this stuff. And then, okay, so these are the limits and I have to do this. And then how much do things cost? And then you go to the doctor and they're just like, oh yeah, you know, your duodenum needed checked. So it's like 80 billion, you know? And it's just like your insurance company's like, well, I mean, duodenum at your age, well, we're only covering 40% of that, you know? And then, but like, look, the insurance company and the healthcare companies are like in on this thing where they agree that like, let's raise rates by about this much every year, and then they're just like, they know they're going to argue somewhere in the middle where we're only going to, insurance companies are only going to pay like 80% of what they get billed, because that's just what they just make this agreement, and they like whittle it down, and so then they're going to pay this much, and then so everybody knows how much they're going to have to get, and it's just everything has been inflated so much by this system that is just disgusting.
You know, healthcare is the only market that doesn't have to show the cost of the procedure, the medication or whatever. They're not required. They can literally they can figure it out with insurance, and the insurance gives the bill, and that's it. Like you can't, I could be miseducated on this, but I don't even think you can like call them and get them out. Like they do not have to give like like if you want to get heart surgery, like they're not going to tell you what the market price for that is. They're not going to tell you what they actually charge for that. They're going to go through insurance, and insurance is going to tell you what they are going to charge you for that. That's insane.
I got an itemized bill for a knee surgery, a scope on my knee, when I was like 18. So this is like 20 years ago. But that was a piece of paper they showed me and wouldn't let me keep. So like, I don't know, like there's a lot of stuff where you go in there, like, can I get my x-rays? And they're just like, we can give them to a new healthcare provider or like send them out, but they don't really want to like give them to you. Because there's like this liability thing of that's what I got told. But like the billing was wild, because like I remember seeing on the billing, it was like one of them was like all the way down to like the box of tissues that was in the waiting room I woke up in was like was on the bill. And it's like, this box of tissues is this much empty, so you're charging everyone whatever it was. It was like, you know, $20 for a box of tissues. That's like a little travel thingy that probably cost 8 cents from some distribution company.
Right.
You know, and it's like, I know this isn't a fresh box of tissues. You know, like, right? So you're charging everyone for this, and it's just going to the insurance company, and the insurance company's negotiating the price lower, and we just have to pay the higher premiums every year because that's just the way it is. And, you know, it just costs more to do stuff, and it's like, but there's nobody's being held accountable here. Again, it's accountability, it's ethics, and like everyone's just okay with this stupid machine that got set up, and everybody needs higher profits, you know, and the hospital's got to be even goddamn bigger than it was last year, you know, and like every hospital is just blown up in size now. And I get that, like, you know, medical care has come a long ways, and you need giant buildings with huge monstrosities of machines in them that cost millions and millions of dollars to do like all the cool stuff we're doing now. But like, really, do you like, do we need to have like 80 billion hospitals that are just that freaking big?
No.
That are just like, okay, we have to draw millions of dollars in profit this year from people that just need health care just to do this, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, I remember growing up, and I'm old enough where it's just like, there used to be like doctor's offices, multiple ones in small towns. And that doesn't even exist now. Like, you have to go to like a clinic or like a non-urgent care facility, or like these like weird things that aren't actually doctors anymore. And you have to go get a referral from somebody that you can't ever call this guy and see him, but if a doctor refers him, then you can go see him. So I have to go see somebody to get referred to somebody else, and hopefully if they can help me, they can. And if not, they'll refer me elsewhere. And you have to do the referral game, and that costs money every time I go somewhere. I have to pay somebody $100 just to talk to them. And
well, yeah, and I mean, I think a big part of why that is because of insurance, because there is this government body that is middlemaning everything, that's maneuvering everything. You know, like I always talk about this with like people who are like pro like universal healthcare or whatever. I'm like, you know, people need healthcare, sure. Mm-hmm. People also need food. They need water. They need shelter. They need shoes. I would actually argue that people need those four things more than healthcare. And those are, I mean, a lot of those things are still regulated, but far less regulated than healthcare. And like, there's a supply and demand there, right? Like, there's a community. They're like, oh, we need somebody to have, like, we need somebody to provide food. And then someone with more money says, okay, that's a market advantage. And then they put it in a business and they profit from that. But the citizens also profit from that. But with healthcare, that supply and demand isn't there. There's this middleman of insurance. Like, well, who was the guy that made like, he made like $13 billion or something on this, like some kind of medication. Like, in a free market, that would not have happened. Because if he just made a product, he was like, hey, this is like each one of these is going to cost like $50,000. He's not going to be able to sell it to anyone. I mean, maybe the elites, but like even then, like it's not going to equate. So he's going to be forced to bring the price down just to make ends meet, just so that his product, like the money that he spent making that product, so he can make that back. So there's like a supply and demand catch in that. But when you have something like insurance where it's like, okay, well, this guy, he's setting the price at 13 billion, million, whatever. We're going to give him 13 billion, and then we're going to leave it up to the other end to make that money. So that's where it gets skewy. That's why things are so inflated, and that's why everything is that crazy.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical industry
is insane.
Is wild, because the amount of companies that have like basically been bought up and merged into one, and then companies have been overinflated by price based on like prospectus, or like this is what's going to happen in the future, and then they've gone under or been devalued because they realize these companies are so top heavy based on they're being valued at, blah blah blah. So that's like one thing. But like insurance is a whole nother thing. That's like gambling. That's like legal gambling. It's just like
it really is.
I'm going to bet them that I like this many dollars per month that I am not going to, need doctor, or I will need this much doctoring every year. And then at the end of the year, like there's no like, I didn't spend it, give me my money back. That never happens, because the money that you put into this pool also goes into a pool of like, you're in the same pool. So your money goes in there too. And so does theirs. And so does yours. And so does everybody's. The fourth wall break. But everybody's money goes into this pool depending on what company it is. And then, so it's like, well, I don't get my money back because somebody was drinking and driving and got in an accident and had to, fix their broken arm. And like because of their negligence and they're in the same pool of money from this company,
Sure.
that's why I don't get my money back. And on top of that, you know, the CEO needs $90 billion. So like you get those two things in there. Did you know that I'm pretty sure, I don't know, maybe we could Google this, maybe not. It doesn't matter. But like I had heard that the insurance industry is the number one overall industry to create millionaires.
Why don't you look that up? I would not be surprised.
Because that would go for people that are in sales positions, etc.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I had heard that. I had heard it mentioned on another podcast, and I just took it as a fact because the person said that they looked it up. So,
dude, that would not surprise me.
Yeah,
at all.
Number one industry to create. I don't know, but like, it makes sense.
The financial service industry.
Number one industry for creating
well, I mean that.
So that's wealth management, investment banking, fintech, consistently produce a large number of millionaires. There you go. So maybe not necessarily insurance.
I mean, but that has to be tied into it.
It's in the same wing somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
because I mean, financial services. Like if you go to any financial advisor, they also sell insurance.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I feel like in that case, the insurance would be what's backing that, right? Like, the financial industry, but then like, how are they getting their money from insurance?
That's crazy. Oh man,
big tech, but tech isn't the only place to make millions. The high-paying jobs in the healthcare industry are spread across virtually every field. For example, according to Glassdoor, the average salary of doctors is between $188,000 and $352,000 per year.
Yeah, 51% of doctors reach $1 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is because of insurance.
Yeah.
Because they get paid out from insurance. And, you know, like when you're talking about like the insurance idea or the pool idea, like putting money in a pool, I don't even necessarily have a problem with that if it's voluntary. But that's the problem is I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's required. Everybody's required to have insurance.
I don't know if you're still required to have health insurance.
Oh, you're not?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that was the thing.
They were, though. You were, and if you didn't, you got a fee.
Yeah.
But the fee was not nearly as much as your premiums you would pay, so you're, again, just hedging a bet. That,
sure.
like, if I don't get injured and don't have to pay any medical bills, then this is a good bet. That's no different than, like, everyone has to have car insurance, but how many people do you remember growing up that were just like, I don't have car insurance? You know, there's a lot of people that were just, like, running around without car insurance because it was just like, I mean, if I'm just driving here to work, what difference is I'm not going to insure this car? You know, it's like, so you're not going to spend like $100, whatever a month it costs to insure this car just because you're hedging the bet that,
yeah,
you know, even if I get in an accident, I'll just pay the other person. I'll come out ahead in the long run, whatever, something. So like the weird thing is like, we're talking about things that have benefit and like how they kind of piss us off, you know, like it's just
sure.
like, this is a thing that could be good. Like a lot of what we've discussed today is like, this is something that could be and should be good. But because of like twisted values and ethics and people's greed, this is no longer a good thing. Yes. And it has ruined a lot of things. And
I agree 100%. Yeah.
So the other thing I like, and I've argued this with a lot of people because I interact with a lot of people that are like, I would say like astute business people and people that have, they're in a higher income bracket than I am.
Sure.
You know, so, and you find out that like these people basically kind of got tired of this whole system and then set up their own system to run it. And now they're the ones that just like, they just regaled themselves like, well, if everybody's taking advantage of everyone, then I'll just do that too. And it's not like they're taking advantage of them. It's just like, they're just playing the game that everyone else is playing.
Yeah.
And they're playing the game. The thing that they like, and I've asked a few of them this, like, what makes you think that you're less bad than these other people that are just going out and doing this? And they're like, I at least like kind of look into this stuff. And so like where, let's say somebody's a business owner or like they're a property owner, property management. So like
sure.
They're going to rent houses or something and they're going to rent things for cheap just because the whole thing is they want their business to cash flow and just at the end of the year, they'll make a small profit and they don't care. And they're not out to make $1 zillion because they have 9 companies, you know? So it's like one of those things where they don't have to sit and think like all my income has to come from this. So I have to screw everyone over on housing just so I can make my money. You know, like I can just be nice about it, you know?
Sure.
And how nice that is depends on the person and how okay they are with looking at themselves in the mirror every morning, you know, or at the end of every work day or non-work day, depending on what they're doing for passive or active income. So like, that's the one thing I feel like it just comes down to people's ethics and values and morals and just like what we all kind of feel and think and how we want to treat other people. But being who we are as humans, we cannot also just basically be like, well, that's the way it is. I got to go work a job for somebody. I could never do this better on my own. Like I was lucky enough that like my hobby turned into a job, and now I have this thing that like I still am working for somebody else, but I also like am being exposed to a different business model where it's like, this is a thing where because I do the bookkeeping, I can actually see that I have a cash flow department within an industry for a subsect of like, a market. And it's like, oh, so I have a thing that like, if I just like cookie cut this out of society, I have a cash flowable thing, so like this is something I could make money on if I wanted to. So I could jump into this sect of other people if I wanted to. Sure. Granted, like I'm hedging my own bet that like at least I know this way I'll get a check every month, even if all of this dries up.
Yeah, sure.
So like that's the bet I'm hedging,
Yeah, I mean a lot of it comes down to risk, right? And it's not like bad to take like there's a quote where it's like most people don't want to be free, they want to be safe. Like I think like most people, they're going to take the less risky option. But in history, when people do take risks, it ends up being better for everyone. We talk about like these people who have like billions of dollars. Honestly, agree with that. But like I think of J.D. Rockefeller, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who created big oil. Now, you can criticize that man, say like, yeah, he had all this money and he screwed over a lot of people, whatever. But like, we also wouldn't have transportation. Like, there's so many things in our lives that are so much easier because of that industry. Yep. And I think a lot of people, they do not think of the long term when it comes to those things. Yes. Like, you can even look at like the tech stuff, right? Like how all these people are making billions of dollars off tech. It also makes everybody's lives so much easier. Oh yeah. And I think if you had a government in that same position, not even I know it would not be as helpful for everyone. That's when you have Soviet Union, that's when you have North Korea, that's when you have, because there's no supply and demand. Like in the oil industry, there's supply and demand. When it's government, there's no supply and demand. It's just, I'm the oligarch, I'm at the top, and what I say goes.
Okay, so you're actually bringing up something kind of fun. So like, I watched a little documentary on some of this stuff, and this is a fun one. So it's like why is China the way China is? So like you look at China from like the 40s, post World War II, like they turned communist. They're kind of just poor, right?
Yeah.
And then now what is China? They're not poor. They have a lot of stuff. They're huge cities that are just like exploding in size. Their government is just, world power, all this other stuff. Yeah, kind of dicks, but like.
Well, there's still a ton of poverty in China, though.
But the whole gist is like they're so much better than they were.
Sure.
And the reason they are, and this is none of this is like this is right or this is wrong. None of this is really politics, but it's just the way that it works. So like in China, nobody's free, and there's no like free economic value. Like you can kind of start a company in China and do stuff and whatever, but there's a pretty big oversight with the government there. So let's just say that the government has their fingers in all the pies. Let's just like the assumption we're going to make. It's not exactly like that, but that's the way it is. So the government kind of chooses what the economy is going to be there. And the government, since they are choosing what the economy is going to be there, they don't have a private sector that's bought into this public entity that needs a report every quarter to show that there is profit on their shareholder dollars. Mm-hmm. They can take long-term bets and just be like, this is for 30 years from now. Go fuck yourself. And that's what they do. And that's why they do weird shit and the things they do, because they don't have to take care of their shareholders, which, because let's say it's all tax dollars that the government operates on, that's the people. So they don't have to answer to the people. They don't have to take care of them. They don't have to show that they're doing things that are going to benefit them now. It's like, I mean, this makes your life really shitty, but there's potential that your kid's life could be pretty neat. Like, I don't know if that's a bet I would want to take, so like having complete oversight for one government, like it has weird benefits,
sure,
but it has like really kind of harsh downfalls on the other end.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see this documentary. I don't know a ton about China, but I would be willing to bet that helps the elites far more than 100%. The people in poverty.
It helps the government. Who's in charge is the people that they kind of choose. They choose to be in charge.
Well, like they have like kids and people who are like not, making any money. They're the ones that are creating the product,
the wealth. Yeah, they're the ones doing the work that is, that is making the rich richer. So it doesn't necessarily like if it's that's basically to me like the government run like a business, you know, like they're making sure the people at the top keep all the money and the people at the bottom are the ones working and they're getting just enough to survive to make sure that we can make more product and make more money.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that is just kind of how most businesses are run. I've only interacted with a few that weren't set up like that. And I do also want to say, being an accountant, I've seen a lot of bookkeeping and a lot of work over the last handful of years. And I've seen a lot of like finances in the last handful of years. And it's not easy to run a business.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on. Oh, you got to rent a building. You got to have insurance. You got to have, everything. It's just money. And then all of a sudden it's just like, and now it's time to actually do the thing. And you're like, man, we're barely breaking a profit here. You know, at some places, like just to do all the stuff, just to do the thing, you know, which is one of the reasons I argue for people to like to turn your hobbies into jobs, because you don't have a whole lot of the weird things in the way keeping you from making that small income money, where it's just like, I guess I'm never really worried about having, you know, I do this in my basement at my house, so I don't really have to worry about paying rent. That's all just tied into what I'm paying anyways. You know, it's like, I don't really have insurance for this. Why? Because it's not really a company and somebody's not going to get hurt here. Yeah. You know, or like, I'm not going to have to worry about getting sued because none of this matters really. You know, like there's the hobby things that you're doing just for fun. There's a lot of things you can kind of get away with not really doing too much of until you get big enough where you kind of have to start worrying about it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's another thing that I think a lot of people like to overpaint. Like when they think of business owners, to think of them as like the guy at the top of the tower who just is on his computer all day and doesn't do shit. You know, like that's really, I mean, I would even think that person probably works a lot harder than people like to think. But,
yeah.
But like, I think honestly, a lot of people downplay being a business owner.
Oh yeah.
They think it's like nothing. They think it's easy. They think it's like, oh, he's just, all he does is like, he just tells people what to do. It's like, yeah, that takes a lot. It takes a lot to tell people what to do.
All you see is the finished product. And what you don't see is the fact that this person started this business out of the back, you know, out of the trunk of their car and was sleeping in their car while working on their projects. You know, like, let's say they're like, I heard this story actually recently on a podcast I was producing, but it was like, there was an electrician that was how he started his company. He borrowed his wife's car because he didn't have one, and he would put all of his tools in the trunk, and he would do like a project where he's going to like wire up a building. And like, let's say it's like a large building that's going to take him several days. Like he only had enough stuff in there to do what he needed to do. So he would like pay somebody to like drop off all of the other supplies he would need in a truck because he didn't have one. And then he would do like the whole job there, and it would cost more money to drive back and forth every single day from home to this place that was remote. And he would just like sleep in the car and then work and then do the thing. And that's how he started his company. Like you don't get to see that stuff. Yeah, now he sits at a desk and just kind of coordinates everything. But like you didn't see this 20 years ago when he was literally sleeping in a car trying to make his dreams come true. You know, there is some of it where it's like, do they deserve a little bit? Yeah, but do they deserve 400 times what I'm making when literally the only reason they can make that is because of me? You know,
it's debatable. It's debatable for sure.
It's hardly debatable, but it is debatable.
Sure,
I will say that.
Like, yeah.
I do not think a guy that just because a board of directors needs somebody to point at and fire if something goes wrong, you don't deserve to make $40 million a year when your average worker makes $40,000.
Yeah,
just to be the figurehead.
Yeah. Well, and that's a different.
In the country of Apple, you know, you have Steve Jobs as the president, and now that's the guy that everyone's going to yell at. You know, like,
sure.
Does he deserve to make $1 zillion dollars just because he made the decision to send everything to China and use semi-slave labor? Like, I don't know. We also wouldn't be doing a podcast without Steve Jobs. That is true. So. Yeah, most of mine would not be done without literally any of that cheap overseas labor as well. So,
well, we've been going for almost 2 hours here.
It seems to be the way it goes every time.
Yeah, like, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is super cool.
Let me just ask you one question: yes or no?
All right, we got.
Is taxation theft?
If it has to be yes or no answer, not if it's done correctly. No, it is not.
Okay.
No, because you can go places where there's no taxes.
Say, wait. You can go places that there's no taxes?
Yeah, leave the country. There's a few places elsewhere in the world where they don't tax people.
Where?
Look it up. Other countries that don't have taxes. I'm sure there are. Or those countries where people just don't pay taxes. Because you tell me the Congo has taxes. You tell me people are in the middle of the jungle are filing a 1099 or like whatever the hell it is.
Well, no,
like,
but
so there's a lot of places.
It's probably more brutal than that. They're probably coming in and taking their shit and raping their children.
Okay, so Oh, there are places with no UAE, Cayman Islands, the Bahamas. Okay, so these are like places, and they might actually have like an oversight place that.
Well, yeah, and like even if they don't pay
in.
taxes, I mean the government brutality there is
Okay, so that
has to be worse.
So maybe that's the only other option then. So would you rather have like freedoms and iPhones and stuff like that, and have cars and streets that are owned by the government, or would you rather go live in Oman?
Oh, I would much rather live here. I'm not arguing that. Like there's definitely like a better side of the spectrum. Like if you're a slave and you have slave owner A and B, and A is better than B, like yeah, that's a better option. I'm not denying that. But the fact you're a slave is still wrong.
Yeah.
So I guess that goes to my why I think it is theft, because like even if you can make all these justifications, like the act is what matters. And if you were to just give your tax dollars voluntarily, that wouldn't no longer be government. That would just be a business.
How cool I wonder what would happen. Like this is something that just to ponder, and I'll walk out with this one.
Sure,
like,
sure.
It would be really fun to think of what would happen if taxes still existed, but everything was 100% voluntary. I wonder what would happen.
Well, that wouldn't be taxes, but I get your point. That's anarchy.
It isn't though, because you still have the same system. You still have the same system, and it's like, do you think that they would no longer, spend money on, hookers or whatever the hell all the politicians are spending all their monies on? So, like, do you think they would still be out there doing that kind of stuff if they didn't have nearly as much money? If it was voluntary, it's like, well, instead of I didn't get $386 million to waste this year, I only got $2 million. So I actually better spend it a little more wisely, because
they would find a way. They would find a way.
Okay. All right.
Peter, this is a great talk, man.
This is so much fun.
This is
Every time.
Hell yeah. What do you want to plug before we wrap up?
audiblefarm.com. Audible Farm everywhere at Audible Farm. That's everything. I talk to musicians, artists, entertainers, things like that. I produce other podcasts. Go check them out online. If I name one, I got to name them all. So I guess just find them if you can. I guess I don't know. Yeah. They're out there. I talk about them sometimes. So yeah, I'm out there. I've got other podcasts. Check me out. And Audible Farm's the fun one. So
what I love about the Audible Farm podcast is like I'll go on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and I'll see like the image, and like half the guests look just like you. It's hilarious.
You all look the same.
It's just like you're some Iowan with the cap and the beard. I'm like,
dude,
it's Peter's twin.
You are right. It's just some guy with a beard and a hat, and if you take the hat off, they probably are bald just like me. It is just the look all of us guys have. They probably have a maybe a button-up shirt that might be like a plaid-ish striped typed color. They call those like country work shirts. Like,
yeah.
Well, I got to ride in the combine, so I better put my button up on.
Well, Peter, that's why I wear a do-rag. So. Guys, McAllister's podcast, we're not doing quite as frequently. We've been doing more game live stream stuff because, like we talked about, putting your political opinions out there can be kind of a stress. So I'm trying to make things a little more lighthearted. So watch out for that. Both gaming stuff, both podcasts. We got a couple people coming in the studio. Maybe I'll decide to do another solo rant one of these days. We'll see.
Dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous. Dangerous for my health, both mentally and physically. I'm going to have a heart attack one of these days, I swear to God. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.
Peace.